Alright, this time I'm going to get a little bit into my own particular brand of geekery, and I'm going to talk about Doctor Who. I'm going to rank the Doctors. We'll start at the bottom. We'll work our way up. Number 11, Colin Baker, the 6th Doctor. I've only seen a couple of the ones that he's been in, but having watched what are supposedly the best ones that he's in, the guy just doesn't do it for me. He is grating. He lacks the charm needed to pull off the Doctor, because a lot of the things that people complain about him, the fact that he's arrogant and he's got a temper and he's very dismissive of humans and all that stuff, well, so are most of the Doctors. The difference is they had the charm to get away with it. Colin Baker just doesn't really have that. Moving along to number 10, William Hartnell, the 1st Doctor. Again, I feel slightly guilty putting him so down towards the bottom. The character was still being formed at that point. And William Hartnell was, again, a bit of a grump. Towards the tail end of his run as the Doctor, he did start to get that sort of little mischievous wink. He definitely planted the seeds of a lot of stuff, and obviously he was the first template, but just taking the performance and the take on the character unto itself, he's just not as much fun. Number 9, Peter Davidson. I think what it is about Peter Davidson that never quite clicked for me is it feels like an act. And he did all the right things. He had the right amount of trepidation for the character. He was conflicted at the right moments. He had that little bit of arrogance that the Doctor should have, but he was also heroic, and there was a lot of good choices made in playing him, but it just didn't feel natural. I kind of wish he'd come back and do a bit more stuff, because if you see him in Time Crash, which is more recent, he is wonderful. I love him in that, and he, at that point in his life, had the naturalness that I feel he just didn't have at the time he was actually playing the Doctor. Number 8, Jon Pertwee, the 3rd Doctor. The reason he's not ranked higher is he's a little too action hero for me. That said, the man was infinitely charming. I mean, charisma just oozed off this guy. He'd give this little sly wink to the side, usually after he's just insulted the human race as a whole, and you're like, oh, I can't be mad at you. You just compared us to apes, but I don't care. Look at that smile. Moving up the ladder, we come to Sylvester Mccoy, the 7th Doctor. He works better in the later ones, I feel, than the early ones. The early ones, they weren't quite sure what to do with him yet, but as his tenure as the Doctor progressed, he started to get this little hint of Machiavellian plotting, of scheming, of just general darkness about the guy, just behind the sort of masquerade of pleasant, slightly bumbling character. And it's a really interesting contrast to watch. And now we come to Doctor number 8, Paul Mcgann. You want to talk about somebody who really got the shaft but still gave a great performance. And if you doubt that he would have been a fantastic Doctor to keep coming back, just watch his face and the nuance and the joy. It's just this glee about him, and it's really, really wonderful to see. Next on the hit list, Christopher Eccleston, the 9th Doctor. A bit like Sylvester Mccoy, he had this sort of dual nature to him. He had a very outward, very pleasant, very joyous front, but you scratch just beneath the surface of that, and he was really, really damaged. It adds a gravity to his performance and his portrayal that works really, really well. Getting towards the top, Tom Baker. The man was just from another planet. It just poured out of him, and he was so perfect for that role. He was clever, he was funny, he was witty, and he had this wonderful sense of childishness. Just everything with this wide-eyed, oh, ooh, and it was infectious, and he was really, really great. Number 3, Patrick Troughton, the 2nd Doctor. Patrick Troughton really, truly set the mold for what we expect the Doctor to be. He was a bit of a coward. He would put on all of these affectations to make his enemies assume he was an idiot, which is something that so many of the Doctors who have come along since him have done. Most of them have, in fact. He has this warmth to him that a lot of the Doctors don't have, actually. He still had this sense of almost sort of defensive superiority that he felt about himself. And it was just endearing. It brings us down to 2. So who came out on top? Well, let's start with the runner-up. David Tennant, number 10. David Tennant is my Doctor. He's the one that made me fall in love with this show. His love of this material and of this character just pours through every frame that he is ever in. But he's not my number 1 pick. Matt Smith is my number 1 pick. And here's the reason. Matt Smith, in addition to being wonderfully charming and just a hell of a lot of fun, he brought the alien back to the Doctor. Because David Tennant, as much as I love him, he's kind of gone native a little bit. And it makes sense. It makes total sense. And I don't question that decision in how to play him. But when I look at the overall scheme of the Doctor, I like that slight otherworldliness. That slight, there's a little bit off. And Tennant, his performance felt a little too human. Matt Smith brought back the weird. And in all honesty, I think part of it is a narcissistic thing, because Matt Smith's my age. It's almost like vicariously I get to be the Doctor. And that's why he's my personal number 1. I would not begrudge anybody for their number 1, because this is a personal choice. This is not an objective list. But there it is. For right now, council is adjourned.